Okay, so welcome back to Bandstand Part 4 continued. We're now going to continue with questions 6 to 9. So having a look at question 6, basically we're now going to start receiving and paying money through our bank. Okay, so basically on the 20th of February we're told that we pay a cheque, and we're given the cheque number, to Total Percussions. Okay, so effectively what we're doing now is we're paying one of our suppliers. So how do we do that? Okay, so let's go to Sage. Right, so we're going to be paying a supplier, but just remember this is now a transaction that's going to go through the bank. So I think I'm just going to see, just make a note. Okay, so if the question says that you have paid money or received money, okay, so if you're paying money or receiving money, always go to the bank. Okay, always go to bank first. So we want to go straight to bank. Okay, don't get confused and think, oh, it says I'm paying a supplier, so I have to go to the supplier ledger. It says I'm paying a customer, so I have to go, or it says a customer is paying us, I have to go to the customer ledger. If it says paying or receiving money, always go to bank. Okay, so I'm going to select bank. Now we have to look at, are we paying a supplier or are we receiving money from a customer? Okay, now remember here we're paying one of our suppliers. Okay, so that indicates that we need to be selecting within the bank function of Sage, we need to be selecting the supplier ledger. So what's happening here is we've gone to our bank and we're going to be paying money out of our current account. Here, by selecting the supplier button, okay, it brings us into this screen. We're linking, the bank is linking to the supplier ledger. Now just to explain that a bit further, from the question you can see that we are paying Total Percussion. So if I type in T, you'll notice here our supplier account comes up, Total Percussion, so I select that. Now you'll see down here there is an invoice entered for £968.20. Okay, £968.20. So what this is down here, this is our supplier ledger. Okay, now the top part, this top part here, is our bank. Okay, and the bottom part, okay, this bottom part here is actually our supplier ledger. So that's where we entered the invoices originally. Okay, so you'll see here we've got our sales, we've got our Sage transaction number, number 4. So that was the invoice. See, they've got PI, purchase invoice. So this was the original purchase invoice that we entered. Remember when we entered our purchase invoices for Total Percussion? Let's just go back to the question. If I scroll up to our purchase invoices. Okay. Yeah. Is it that one? 1096? Yeah. Okay. So remember back a week or so ago, we were entering our purchase invoices. We entered this purchase invoice 1096 for a gross cost of £968.20. Okay, so now we're going to pay it. So if I come back to Sage, we can see here those details have been entered. That's the Sage unique transaction number that Sage gives to every transaction. Each transaction, as I said before, that you enter into Sage will be given a unique number by Sage. Here under type, it says PI, so we're told what type of transaction it is. PI stands for purchase invoice. Again, that is in your manual, so maybe have a review of that, of those initials that are allocated to the types of transactions that are entered into Sage. Here we have our account reference that we have given to the supplier, the date of the invoice number. Okay, and that's why it's always important to make sure you correctly enter the invoice numbers and the dates when you're posting the invoices, so that then when we come to pay them, we come to do our reconciliations, it's easy to tie things up. Okay, and we've got our description. Now, that's the invoice. If we have a look at the top here, okay, we have our bank account reference. So the first thing we need to do is we need to check we're in the right bank account. Now if I click on this down arrow, just to the right of the bank account reference, you'll see it gives me all my bank accounts. Now, as I said in the first or second week, we will only be using the current account and the petty cash. So those are the only two that you need to worry about. All our payments are going to go into and out of our bank current account unless it's petty cash, and then we'll be using the petty cash account. So we're in the correct account, bank current account. We've selected the correct supplier. You can see here TP24 tells us the supplier account we're in, which is Total Percussion, so that's fine. And now we need to just sort of enter the date. Here we need to enter the date of the payment. Okay, so the date that we're actually making the payment needs to go in here. Then we need to enter our check number. So first of all, let's look at the date of the payment. Okay, so if I come back down to question 6. Right, so we made the payment on the 20th of February. So in the date, I just need to enter 20th of February 2013. Okay, I'm then going to need to enter the check number. Now, not many businesses use checks anymore, but so therefore you might need to use a sort of an electronic transfer reference number, or you could just enter BACS if it's an electronic transfer. Some reference so you can tie it up when you're doing your bank reconciliation. But we're given a check number here. Say checks are still used but rarely. It's 101571. So I'm going to enter that into the check number 101571. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allocate the payment that we've made. Now we're told that we've made a payment of £968.20. Okay, I'm going to allocate that to the invoice. So leave this blank, leave that as 0. But what you do is come down into the ledger and you see a column here for payment. Okay, so I'm going to find the invoice. Well, we know 1096, this is the invoice we're paying. So if I highlight the cell that corresponds to the invoice that I want to pay, and then I can do two things, okay? Now, the payment is for £968.20, so we're paying the invoice in full. So you'll see down here to the left at the bottom, so the third button from the left, we have Save, we have Discard, and then we have Pay in Full. If I select Pay in Full, you'll notice here Sage has now populated the payment cell that's aligned with the invoice that we're paying. Now, it's important you do enter it into the correct cell to allocate it to the correct invoice, and it has also populated this this cell up here. Okay, so I could then save, and it would post the payment to the bank and to the supplier ledger. Alternatively, if it's a part payment, for example, if I was only paying £500 for that invoice, I could just type it in. I would have to manually type it. So I could manually type in the amount. Okay. So again, just check those details are correct before you save anything. Remember, once you save, it is posted to the accounts. So that looks correct to me. So I'm going to save. Okay. Now I'm going to show you two things. As I said, that will now be posted to the bank. So if I go into my bank current account, if you go here, just click twice to open up the bank account. And if I go into the tab Activity, so you'll see within the bank record screen, there are these various tabs: account details, bank details, contact, activity. I want you to select activity, and you'll see here this is the activity so far of our bank account. Not very much. Okay, what we've done is, of course, at the beginning we did enter a journal where we paid £70,000. The owner paid £70,000 into the account, and now we have paid out £968.20. Okay, and this is a new transaction. Okay, so again you'll see here Sage has given our payment the transaction number 22. Okay, I'm going to close that, and I'm now going to go to the supplier ledger. So again, on the left, if we go to the supplier ledger, I'm going to go into the supplier account that I've just paid. Well, on here you can see our balance is now nil, so we've paid off that supplier account. But if I highlight the total percussion account, so just highlight the total percussion supplier account, and then up here on the supplier toolbar, if we select the button Activity, okay, what that will do is it will show us the activity that has occurred within the supplier account total percussion. Okay, now here we can see our original invoice that we posted, which was transaction number 4, which you'll recall from when we were posting the payment. So that was our invoice. Okay, and now coming down we have our transaction number 22, which is our payment. You can just see the type has been allocated the reference PP, which stands for purchase payment. Again, for these I would look at your manual. These references are in your manual. So again we have our details: the date the payment was made, the cheque number, it was a purchase payment for £968, that was the amount. And you'll see here we've got our credit, our invoice, our purchase invoice obviously was a creditor, and we have now paid that off. So the double entry here has been, we have debited the supplier account and we have credited bank. Okay, so you can see here it's been debited in the supplier account. If I go back to the bank, let's get activity just to show you that here. You can see the bank has been credited. So remember from our accounting systems lecture, whenever we pay money out of the bank is credited. Okay, again, if I just go back to the supplier account and total percussions, if we just look at the activity again, just something I want to show you here. You see here there's a column, O_S, now that's outstanding. Now you'll see there's nothing outstanding. The balance on this account is now at 0. Okay, and there are no invoices outstanding. So with that in mind, let's just look at another account. If I look at, say, Sounds Alive, I'm going to unhighlight total percussions and highlight Sounds Alive. If I select activity, okay, now in contrast, we can see if we look at the outstanding column, you can see here we have these invoices are outstanding. Of course, they have been credited to the supplier account. Okay, before you do anything, I would always advise make sure that you unhighlight anything that you highlight. Otherwise, if you decide to run a report or perform another transaction, Sage will only pick up the accounts that are highlighted. So just be very careful. If you do highlight something to have a look at the activity or to run a report, make sure you always unhighlight it when you have finished. Okay, so moving on to question 7. Okay, we're now told that on the 22nd of February we receive a credit note from Sounds Alive. So again, this is a credit note that we are receiving from Sounds Alive. Some of the guitars that they sold us were faulty, so we're getting a credit note for that. So that's effectively going to reduce the amount that we owe Sounds Alive. Okay, now it's telling us here that the credit note is for £761, that includes VAT of £113. Okay, I'm going to show you a little trick, which I did mention earlier, but I don't think we've actually seen how it works on Sage. Okay, so to enter a credit note, now it's from a supplier, so again, this time we are not receiving or paying money, it's a credit note. So a credit note is the same, similar to an invoice. So we need to go to Supplier Ledger, and up here on the toolbar you'll see here we have credit. Okay, so that's how we post a credit note. We select the credit button, okay, and you'll notice it's red. Now that's sort of Sage telling you that you're not in the invoice batching screen, you're in the credit note batching screen. Okay, so be careful not to continue to post, for example, invoices to the credit note batching screen or vice versa. Okay, so it's Sounds Alive is the account, so if I type in S, okay, and select the Sounds Alive account, the date is the 22nd of February, so just enter the date. Now the credit number, okay, we're told is CN516, okay, and now this, of course, we're posting it to, okay, it's 40 electric guitars, so we want to be picking up the purchase code for electric guitars, okay, and then I'm just going to put a description, 40 electric guitars, okay, and now, okay, now we're told that the amount £761.40 is inclusive of that. Now you could do a manual calculation to work out what the net is, but what we can do is we can get Sage to calculate it for us. So if I type in 761.40, Okay, now there are two ways we can get Sage to calculate the net cost from the gross. I can, again, if we go down here to the bottom of the supplier credit screen, you'll see we have save, we have discard, and we have calc net. Now if I select calc net, what happens up here? You can see up here the gross that I entered has now become £648, which is the net cost, and Sage has calculated the VAT on that net cost as £113.40. And of course we're told in the question that the invoice, the gross total £761.40 included VAT of £113.40. So that's been calculated correctly. We can see up here, we have our total is £761.40, so that's correct as well. Okay, so another way that we could calculate the net cost if we're only given the gross total, rather than doing it ourselves, we can I'm just going to delete the line. Now, what F key, try and remember what F key do we need to use to delete a line. Okay, if we look at our shortcut keys, okay, if I select F8, I can just delete that. The only reason I'm deleting it is because I'm just going to show you the example again. So I'm going to select Sounds Alive, okay, enter the date just as I did before, and the credit note number. Okay, right. Now this time, again, I'm going to enter the gross total. Now what I can do is I could select F9. Okay, now if you select F9,